Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and it is the Page Chewing Friday Conversation, episode 74.
Ooh.
But before we get into introductions, just wanted to um, sorry, just wanted to mention about our friend Pax, Pax Panic, YouTuber and good friend. Sorry, lost her battle with cancer this week, and just want to say she'll be missed. So she was a wonderful person and great friend, and she'll be dearly missed. So, yeah, her channel is still up, and she still had videos that were recorded that are being released now. So, it'd be good if we can get her to like 1,000 subs or something, just as a gesture, just to say goodbye. So, but yeah, I just wanted to say that really quick. But she'll be missed. So, I thought of the way. So this week we have some great friends joining us. We have the Expanse crew. We've been reading the Expanse together for many, many books, and I was able to twist Robyn's arm and get her to join us tonight, and twist Layla's arm too. So happy they can both join us. But we'll go around the room as usual and give some introductions. PL, would you kick us off, please?
I'm PL Stewart. Um, Steve, heartfelt condolences, my friend, on the loss of Pac. She was wonderful. Yeah, I'm the author of the John Kingdom Saga, and I'm also the person that hangs off Steve and Taylor's coattails on page chewing. And I do all kinds of other stuff, like I'm an assistant editor for Go Blog, led by the incredible Beth Tabler. Steve's a blogger there, and I do reviews and things like that. I'm actually kicking off my own channel as of tomorrow, my own BookTube channel with Steve and Taylor for episode 47 of Page Chewing. And I have the honor of my inaugural thing I do on BookTube is with Steve and Taylor, and our guest will be the eminent Philip Chase, Dr. Philip Chase, fabulous booktuber extraordinaire, author, and professor. So I'm excited. Great to see Chris, Layla, and Robyn. Nice to interact with Robyn for the first time on virtually, and of course, Chris and Layla well, and always great to be beside my peeps, Steve. So.
Definitely. And Robyn?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Robyn. Hi, everyone. I have a small channel called Bookends Biscuits where I talk mostly about sci-fi, sometimes about fantasy, and a tiny bit about crime. They're taking the piss because I'm not really a night owl and it's a little bit late for me, but I'm hopefully have lots of good conversations with everybody. Really pleased to have discussions on many bookish things this evening.
Awesome. Thank you for staying up late with us. And Layla?
I'm Layla Goushey. I'm a page chewing fan, first of all. Also professor of English and editor of Ballady Magazine, where we'll be starting a probably 6 times a year book club. I've got kind of that in the works, so that's going on. And just wanted to say a special note about Pax as well. I did not know her as well. I did go and watch some of her videos after I heard the news, and just want to honor her.
Yeah, Lila. That's sad news indeed. My name is Chris Mohan. Sometimes booktuber, sometimes appear on Steve's channel. Lover of the Friday conversation, whether on it or watching. And really glad to have the company of everybody here tonight, because a lot of my favorite people here. So
Definitely, yeah. So, Robyn, can you tell us, why did you start a channel? Put you on the spot first.
Wow. Dive right in there, didn't we?
Right in there,
okay. Yeah. Why did I choose the channel? This is terrible, because I like books and because so many people looked like they were having fun, having conversations about books. And I just kind of wanted to be a part of that. Not everyone reads in, I was going to say real life. This is obviously real life too, but not everyone reads like in day-to-day life. And it's really nice to have people to discuss with. So yeah, that's kind of why I started. I just want to talk to people about books. So, and I found lots of nice people, which is great.
Now you can't get rid of us.
No, God. Yeah, but I was talking about this. I went to a meetup the other weekend, and there's been not quite a group of people that I've interacted with that have been as welcoming as the book community. No one's cliquey about genres, about anything like that. I know there's drama, there's always drama, but everyone's so welcoming. Everyone's like super welcoming. So it's lovely to have good people.
Yeah,
That's it.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that's a great point about genres, being sort of people breaking off into their genres at book gatherings and also writers gatherings, because I've been to several of those, and there'll be like the hall for romance, or the hall for literature, and the hall for this, um, and I remember a while back, well, way long ago, in another generation, I attended a book fair where the author of the show Outlander, you've probably all heard.
like Daniela Gabaldon.
Right. But I think it was like her first book. So this was like way back in the 90s. And but she was, kind of pushing back on genres too, because I remember in her talk, she said, we should all be considered aspects of literature. There shouldn't be like a literature hallway, and then everybody else. And that always stayed with me. And so I think that sentiment's out there, even as there's the separation too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that really strikes me about the booktube community and the book community in general. There's no delineation of roles. You know what I mean? In some other communities, I know there's like hierarchies of the successful people, and then the people who, for want of a better word, even the authors would have their own little space and that kind of stuff. But it sort of feels, and maybe this is endemic to the fantasy sci-fi genre, that everybody is kind of in the melting pot together. Everybody's in everybody else's comments, everybody else's channel. A lot of the biggest YouTubers, I say, are the most vocal people of trying to build other people up, and as the thing. So I remember kind of thinking I'll start making a few videos on books and whatever, and maybe in about a year and 2 years' time I'll be able to talk to somebody face to face about it, or in some sort of video. And then most Fridays now seem to be taken up with exactly that. It's such a good thing to have in the space, something I'm very appreciative of.
Yeah.
And what about you, Layla? You have a channel, Ballady Magazine. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. Really, I just really created it. It's a website, a web magazine. I kind of created it just as an outlet for myself, first of all, and kind of just to see about building it and where it goes. Because, I specialize actually for my work in Arabic literature and translation, or Arab American literature. But I read widely. And so I always had this like feeling that I need to break out of all of these boundaries. I just want to enjoy what I enjoy, at the time I'm enjoying it. So, Baladi in Arabic means like my home, my village, or my home. Excuse me. So in sort of an homage to my heritage, I used Arabic, but it's really like, the site is my home, and what I want to happen in my castle will happen. and sort of, and not have all of these different boundaries going on, but just kind of pull together things I find are interesting and that I like. And so definitely happy that P.L. Stewart joined me for a conversation once. And but time is also a challenge for me, because working full time and then reading, which I love to read, and I have some writing goals, and which really the page chewing short story competition that's going on. I don't really, I'm not there to compete or whatever. I just want the chance to like have a prompt and a deadline and be able to generate ideas. And it's just been mind blowing for me to be able to just be part of that because it's like super casual. Um, but I seem to write better. I mean, or I seem to write more.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that's just been a great experience too. But back to the ballady thing, it's I was looking for an outlet outside of work where I didn't have all these different boundaries and course modules and things like that you know I had to put together. So yeah, so it's fun. Yeah.
The battleground seems like a lot of fun. I dip in and out of it, Layla, but you have such a mix of people that are like using it as a reason to write more. There's some people using it for escapism. You've some, like I would say, a lot more established authors and contributing and all, getting something out of it. And I know from speaking to people like Alex, etc., that they kind of use it as a playground to say, right, okay, the prompt is this. I'm going to set myself a little sub-target of this to do as well, and then see what sort of feedback that I get off it and use it kind of as a room for exploration and trying things out rather than kind of committing to say, oh, I'm going to write a novel in this or whatever it's going to be. It's just a short story.
And which side is that?
And the page in the Writer's Battleground, the one you're talking about with your prompt.
Oh, yeah.
And our friend Austin is here. Agreed, Layla. I had this conversation in my English class.
About boundaries, Austin? I guess so.
Yeah, it was a conversation I was having earlier on with my daughter, actually, because she was actually just talking about music, saying, she's finding herself kind of going, as she's growing up, kind of liking different types of music. And I hadn't really thought about it at her age, but she's like, oh, this is strange, because people like to pigeonhole themselves to say, I'm a fan of this one thing. And I was having this conversation that we are all more than one thing, even at the same time. Sometimes we kind of float from mood to mood, to books, to movies, to podcasts, to writing, to whatever it is, to going out for a run or out on their bike. Sometimes, we can mix all these things in and sort of be consistent with who we are in some way.
Yeah, I always feel like I'll be doing one thing and I'll think, oh, there's a connection here, and so I need to make a note to go find out about that or go do that, yeah. And I'll admit, sometimes bike riding, I'm like, I should really be walking right now. I should really, because I can't see the plants because I'm going too fast. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Speaking of time, PL, how do you do it with your reviews and writing and YouTube? I mean, how do you find the time to do everything?
I don't know. I haven't really figured that out. I work full time, a very busy career, full time not writing, and then I have writing, and then I have I'm a blogger, and I said I'm assistant editor with Before Go Blog, and right now once again I'm joined the SBFBO Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off judging team for this year's version, which is always a lot of fun, so exciting. It's such an amazing contest. I just wrote my recent blog on my website about SBFBO. Check it out. But just hashtag SBFBO and something like Twitter, and you're gonna find so many amazing authors. There's all kinds of sales, specials, and just the hype and the buzz is just phenomenal. Anyways, yeah, so I took that on again, and of course, I have a busy family, kids, grandkids, my wife. I to be honest with you, Steve, yeah, I guess I'm just right now. I'm just in a juggling phase, but I also feel that, I'm being honest with you. I'm just kind of, but one thing I'll say is I'm somewhat organized. You know me, I'm this massive planner, right? I have like everything planned, to a certain degree. I mean, I say to myself, like, wow, what am I going to do with the spontaneity of retirement when I can just get up and, kind of, be a bit more flexible with certain things. But yeah, I have everything planned. I think that's my secret to success. Like, me, I'm crazy that way. I've planned out 20 books in a series. I've planned out all the titles and covers, and I plan everything down to the last detail. And I think that aspect of my life, it's probably obsessive, but I think my structure has helped me stay sane for me, and it's helped me be somewhat more productive than if I was a bit more, less rigid. And that doesn't work for everybody. I'm just saying it works for me, So I feel like once I retire and I no longer work full time, wow, I think I'm gonna be able to move mountains once, What's that? I got 6 years left, of my regular job. So once that happens, hopefully, besides spending more time with my wife, my lovely wife Deb, who's also my business manager, I should mention, she is just incredible. She does a lot of things behind the scenes in terms of this entrepreneurial stuff that nobody sees. So kudos, hi baby, I love you. You are, she's my rock, and she does so many things to help advance my writing career. And to be honest, you think now too, I'm a bit more relaxed in terms of, like when you first start out to this writing thing and the booktube world, and being part of writing community in general and blogging and stuff, you're a novice, right? And I'm still a novice, relative novice, but I think you gain some experience with the things that you kind of. I tend to stick with the things I like and the things that I'm somewhat adequate at, and I think that's part of my formula too. Like, I'm starting a booktube channel, and I'm not going to do everything that someone like Steve can do, right? Steve is so multi-talented, and he's so modest, and he doesn't ever say anything about himself, but this guy is seriously talented, right? He has a movie, Steve Talks movie channel. He runs page queuing forum and creates this incredible, safe, wonderful, just dynamic space for all of us to enjoy. And Steve's a father and a husband, and he's athletic. He rides bikes, and he works full time, and he has a busy job, and he does all these things, but he's very humble with it. He also should become a voice actor because his voice is one of the best out there, right? So, but anyways, like I've discovered personally the things I'm somewhat good at, and things I'm not. So, for example, when I start my booktube channel, I'm going to be, the primary goal is really because Steve and Taylor, my wonderful friends, they've taken the bulk of this page queuing thing, and page queuing has really evolved and grown over since Steve started it, and but now we're like, I need to carry my share of the weight. Steve and Taylor just had a baby, a one beautiful girl, and we're so happy for her. And that's gonna take a lot of her time in the future. And so to just be a good teammate, I got to start picking up some slack here and taking some episodes on. So that's the primary goal of my channel. But there's some things that I'm really interested in that I like to do. And like I said, I'm not going to do all kinds of, things that other bloggers, perhaps Chris or Layla or Steve or Robyn can do. But I'm going to do reviews because that's something I like. And that's something that, I seem to be halfway competent at. And I'll do some deep dives because I love analysis. And I'm no Philip Chase or AP Canavan. But, I like delving into, certain aspects of the book and highlighting certain things and emphasizing certain things and hopefully bring them to light, and I'll probably do some author interviews myself at some point. But for now, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, and I'm not going to be putting out 5 videos a month, right? I'm going to do my main priority is my page queuing peeps, Steve, Taylor, and I, what we have going. And if you haven't checked out page queuing, I hope you do, because this is what I like to say. I like to think that we have something special there. And first of all, something special between Steve, Taylor, and I. And then on top of that, the guests that we've had on there are just like, they're so phenomenal. And we've been very blessed that they all said yes and they're willing to come on. Sometimes it all surprises me, oh my God, this person said yes, but they keep saying yes, so we must be doing something right. And what's really blown me away is the critical response, the praise, like, Rob
That's
Hayes,
the missing page.
Yeah, you have a man eating a page out of a book on YouTube, like
Page queuing live.
Big shout out to Rob Hayes, brilliant and very, very well known indie author who actually ate a page part out of his book on page queuing. So I mean, how can you top that, right?
That's so awesome.
How can you top
really
that?
Cool.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm I find the time, I think, because I'm trying to keep it simple and just stay organized and do the things that I'm somewhat adequate at.
That was a
Somewhat.
highlight to have won the Page Chewed volume. That was a great week. It really was.
You didn't get like a wee plastic bag with the bit that he chewed up and you put it with a package just so you had every page of the book complete.
I assumed it was properly digested and everything.
Yeah, it was a great episode of Page Two, that one specifically. Having read a lot of Rob's books and kind of again see his personality in the page is just exactly what he's like, kind of in some way in real life.
Yeah.
So with the guests you've had on and stuff, is anyone that you've ever like? Okay, this might just be a me thing because I'm a bit nervous. Has anyone made you like nervous about the fact that you've got this person on? Is there anyone particular that you're quite nervous about, or has it all been pretty chill?
What about you, Steve? You go first.
I can't really think of anyone that. No, I don't think so.
Ken, I don't remember you being
so
quite
calm,
nervous about
Steve.
Ken, no, or being a bit like, "Wow, Ken News coming on." No.
Yeah, because I was afraid to say something
Yeah.
stupid because he's like next level, like crazy. So, but I'm always worried about saying something stupid. So it's like, it was just elevated a little bit higher with Ken around, but yeah, there's been a few authors that I've been nervous to interview, but mostly just people I'm afraid to say something really stupid. So I try to ask a lot of questions to prevent me from saying anything stupid. But what about you, PL?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I wasn't actually on the Ken Nui one, and I wasn't on this one, Steve Erickson, and that would have been another one that I would have been pretty intimidated on. Like sometimes, depending on what's going on, either one of the three of us can't make a broadcast. But I think for me, there's a couple like we just had Tessa Gratton on recently, and she is just I'm such a fanboy, and that was like oh my gosh, it's Tessa Gratton, and she's wonderful. It wasn't so much nervous, but Evan Winter is an author that I really, really admire in terms of just his whole makeup, and I was very I was more excited when he came on. Fonda Lee, Taylor. That's a fangirl moment for Taylor. Taylor was just through the moon with Fonda Lee, and that was a kind of like I think a big deal. I was also really stoked for this is an author, but the brothers Gwyn, because I love them as YouTubers, and of course I love their dad's writing, and I'm just a big fan of their channel, and that was really cool. So it wasn't so much nervous, but just excited, like it wasn't like I was worried or anxious about speaking to them, but
But it's a big moment, isn't it, PL? When you get people that you really enjoy their content or you really enjoy their work, you kind of like. I suppose in my case, like I don't want to not even say something stupid, but I just don't want to come across as wrong or insincere or something with them. I don't want that to be the impression that they have of me, especially if you respect them so much.
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel intellectually inadequate when people like Philip Chase and AP Canada, like like these their brain power is elite, right? And when they start talking about certain things, you're just trying to keep up, right? So that's at least for me. I'm not saying for speaking to Stephen Taylor. I'm saying me with my little pea-blank brain. I'm trying to process some of this stuff, and but it's also so stimulating. Like when when you sit down, and you listen to someone like Philip or AP, Jenny Wirtz, and Jenny's a great friend of a lot of ours. Certainly, I'm honored to call her a friend. I speak to her, I chat to her regularly on virtually. But I mean, she is just such a wealth of knowledge. She just knows so much, and of course, she's my favorite writer. But her, I mean, again, someone whose brain power is just immense, and you just want to soak up all of that knowledge, and So I guess, but now I think the more you hang out with people like that, with people like all of you here who are also incredibly intelligent and insightful, I think I think you just, you're less, you just, you get, it becomes easier, right? You're more comfortable with doing that, right? So,
And I think on the other side, they're probably feeling the same way in a certain way, you know. Um, I think everybody kind of has that sense down deep inside that, oh, I hope I don't say something, even if you've done a lot of um, interviews or shows or whatever, you know. So,
yeah. I think part of it too is, we talk about this a lot. Like, I still feel very much like, whom I am, who am I to be able to, sit down and hang with Steve and all the three of you and talk to, whoever, whichever author, like I'm nobody, right? But what I realize, and in the community, you realize that there's people who feel the same way, and they're looking up to people like us who are regularly on camera and thinking that it's a big deal. And even though we're thinking, oh my gosh, no, we're not. And so you keep that in mind. And I think um, the, it's a lovely feeling be able to lift up people who don't realize how important they are and how special they are, and that they deserve to be share the same space as Ken Louis or Fonda Lee or whoever, right? And that's a wonderful, wonderful feeling when they're excited. But oh my gosh, I get to, I've never had an interview before. No one's ever asked me, or I haven't had the opportunity. I've tried before and I haven't been able to take advantage of it. But now they get to, and that makes you feel good, right? So much about what we do here is what I love about BookTube is, it makes you feel good, right? You get to talk to great people, you get to engage in stimulating conversation, and you get to help hopefully shine a light on some authors, and some of them already have a big spotlight on them, and some of them perhaps don't have as big one, and you get to enhance that, and that makes you feel good, right? And there's so many amazing creatives. One thing writing community, people have to remember, it's not just authors, it's agents, it's editors, it's podcasters, booktubers, bloggers. There's all these amazing people, and they deserve recognition, and it's just a great place to engage and chat.
yeah, I agree. And I think that's why I like this community so much, because I'm always been someone that's like, I find something and I'm going to say, oh, wow, look at this, And I, excuse me, I think I do that at work, my work day. But like I said, I was looking for other outlets to like just make that more part of my life, because, I'm an introvert in many ways, I'm a reader. So I'll be sitting there reading and I'll be thinking somebody needs to know about this great book, And then somehow I kind of gravitated to this community, and yeah, it's just great. It's been great. And PL, I was thinking about what you're saying about being organized, because I started using this website called Trello. Has anyone heard of Trello? Well, I decided this summer, this is my big turning point this summer, because I always teach, which is fine. And I have been, I am someone that stays organized and makes lists and all that. But I said, this is the summer I'm really going to write that something, either write that book or, but it takes organizing, And so, yeah, my Trello now has like all of these different stickies all over it about what my deadline is for this and this and this. But I do think when you do that and you just follow it, with some hiccups here and there, but it gets you somewhere. So I really do like that strategy. I agree.
Do you not find though? I think that when I do that, I love the planning process. I never stick to the planning process. So like the idea, like the actual organization and the list writing, that Trello board making is I love it. It's a joy to me. But then I kind of lose interest when I have to do the actual whatever it is. I don't write because I don't have the brain capacity for anything. But whatever I would be trying to do, I just find sticking to it is the hardest part.
Yeah.
But you are still reasonably organized because you still get out a regular slew of videos at a timely point each month. Robyn, you're much better than I am in that regard. And I like a plan, but you've got to learn to forgive yourself if you don't stick to plan, and not beat yourself up. I think that's one of the things that I'm very strong on. Is like, look, it's more important that you listen to your body, listen to kind of the time, and don't kind of do things because you said you would, or you've made this promise to yourself.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of being kind to yourself. I think even to the point of like, I know because on BookTube you want to read a lot of books sort of thing, but sometimes you just don't fancy reading. It's one of those things like if I know I don't fancy reading, I'm not going to force it. Or if I know I don't fancy doing this, or if I plan to do this and I don't feel like it, I never force it because I just think it's never going to end well. So I generally just take the opportunity for when I'm in the mood to do something, I'll just smash through a bunch and really go into the flow of it, and then step back when I'm out to do something else. So yeah, I was going to ask P&L when, and I'm assuming I'm allowed to call you P&L. Obviously, that's good.
Sorry,
P&L, is it P&L? Is that how you?
PL?
PL, okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
it's my initials, P and L.
Cool, awesome, thank you. Okay, so you said you had loads of like planning, but do you is it just exactly plans for, you said you had a 20-book series and everything else, or is it literally, I'm going to spend 3 hours this evening doing this, I'm going to spend 2 hours doing this, or is it just what you've got to get done, but it's not to the level of actually having hours and things? Because you sounded very organized.
Yes, no, you're right, Robyn. That's a great question. No, I've said this before. I work shift work in my job, and I'm in law enforcement, and it's a very chaotic kind of job. And there's a time where, especially when I worked a lot of night shifts, I found it draining when I came home. Sometimes if I didn't sleep properly, it's very messes with your psychotic rhythms and things. So, and of course, I had a busy life, busy family. So I wrote whenever I could. If I came off a night shift and I had energy, maybe I wasn't going back to work the next day and I was up, I was alert, for a reason, I'm still kind of wired. I'd start writing sometimes and write for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours and go to sleep, delirious, but, and probably writing garbage, but I was writing. And then some days I'd go for days, and some days I'm totally energetic. I'd had good sleep, but I just didn't feel like writing. So I don't write. But so it's very much what I felt I can handle on a day-to-day basis. I'm not one of those people who write, strictly a certain amount of words every day. I don't stick to any kind of a writing calendar or diary. But that said, I do have an internal clock that says, it's time to get this book done. So pick up the pace as well. The benefit of being a self-published author is that for the most part, your deadlines are your own. So it's not like you have a publisher saying you need to get this book done in a year's time or whatever. Like I set my own deadlines. That said, I made a commitment to myself that for my initial 7-book series, the John King Saga, I was going to publish a book a year. So every year you'd see a new book around the same time in spring every year. And, I'm on writing book 4 now. And so far it's on track to be published in the spring of 2024. Thank you. And each book prior has been published. You got it today, Steve. Each book has been published in the spring of each year so far. So if I can stick to my plan, then I feel like I've accomplished that goal of staying on track and staying organized, and also the commitment, my internal commitment to me, but also a commitment that I've publicly made, saying that, hey, folks, I think we're all sensitive. We've talked ad nauseum about much bigger authors than me. Nobody. I'm saying like the George R. R. Martins and the Patrick Rothfuses, that we won't belabor that whole thing. But I want to be known as someone, tiny independent author that I am, that finishes the series. As long as I'm alive and healthy and able to write, I will finish my series 1 book a year for this series. After that, because I have 2 prequel trilogies planned next, that's what the next thing on the agenda is. We'll see how that works out. I probably should be able to do a book a year, but we'll see. And then I have a subsequent 7-book series planned in the same universe. And so yes, and I know you're probably, Robyn, you're probably looking at Gray and saying, this guy's been writing like when he's 95. right? So, but
I think it sounds awesome.
but yeah, I mean, I do have. I mean, I'm committed to writing these 20 books. Hopefully, reasonably, hopefully I live a long enough life that I'll get them all out, and then we'll see what else. I have some other projects and plans in the near future, but that's going to be the bulk of what the vast preponderance of what I spend my time on will be finishing the John Kingdom saga and its associated prequels and secondary series, and that's what I have planned. But as much of a planner, you don't want to make too many plans because life throws you curveballs, projects come up, and other things take priority, or mental health, physical health, family issues. You just But in my mind, I'm forging ahead with doing it that way, and so far so good. And also, but to be honest, the biggest thing too is that I feel like I have author friends who are really fantastic writers, far better than me, and they're also very prolific, and they can pump out several books a year. Even which I can't do that. I think one is my limit. For me to craft a book that I think meets a certain standard, like one a year, like that's a lot for me, right? So for other people, like that's no problem. And it also depends on the kind of book you write. I write big, epic fantasy, 160 to 200,000 K word tomes, right? So writing more than one of those a year and making it somewhat quality, I think that's I think that's a tall order. And finally, the thing I want to say is, like all authors, I'm striving for continuous improvement. So if you read my first book, I want you to say, okay, yeah, we liked it, or it was great, or it was good, or whatever. But then when you read the second book, I want you to be able to say, oh, it was better. And then when you read the third book, oh, I want, hopefully, and that's a high bar to reach. I'm not saying it's possible. And of course, it's very subjective to each reader what's good and what's not. But that's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for someone to go, wow, like PL keeps stepping up his game. Like that's what I hope to achieve. So, and that takes a lot of effort, and I don't think I do that more than once a year. So,
does having a readership or a following change the pressures in that, PL? You know what I mean? You can have yourself determined, kind of going to put out a book a year, but then when people are going, constantly asking, when's the next book out, PL? When's the next book out, PL? Does that kind of go, oh God, I want to write more, or write less, or
Well, my following's pretty modest. It's not.
It's going to keep building over a 20-book series. It's going to, somewhere along the line, it's going to be like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big indie author. I'm no Daniel Jackson or Ryan Cahill or there's some big indie authors out there, and then there's people in total the stratosphere, like the Will Whites, whatever. Some are very small, modest indie author that has some small modicum of readership or success, and I think it's growing a bit, which is I'm happy about. But I'm still a nobody. But that said, like I do feel that like what gets me is when somebody, what makes me happy and makes me so enthusiastic when somebody says, you know what, PL, that last book was even better than the next book. So that's the pressure I feel like. Okay, I got to keep up in game. And also when people give you feedback about the things you do well and what you don't do well as well, but then how do you turn that into a strength by still writing the book you like? Because, for example, I've talked about this with Steve, I think Layla. So somehow in my books, it wasn't necessarily a goal of mine, but I want to do it well. But people seem to like my battle scenes. They seem to enjoy my battle scenes. So, but when I started writing, I didn't think battle scene writing, like I'm someone who I've admired the Miles Camerons and the Emma Winters. Like those people are on another level for writing that stuff. But for whatever reason, people enjoy my battle scenes. So then my thing was, okay, well, how do I give my readers what they want without, I mean, I want to write books that I think are well-rounded, not just, slashed in blood, right? So, how do I incorporate that into my next books to make it appealing for readers while still staying true to myself in terms of the book I want to write? So I'm trying to achieve that balance still. I'm still working on it, but I think I'm getting there. So yeah, I that's more the pressure, Chris, if you don't want to talk about it's trying to get that, I don't want to say perfect book, but you're trying to write the book you want to write. You're trying to not be tone deaf to criticism, but yet not take it to an extreme where, I mean, I mean, if only one person or a small group of people say this about your book, then maybe it's not something you need to address. But if a bunch of people are saying the same thing about something, that's maybe something you need to work on. But that works the other way too, right? If people are loving some aspect of your book, um, how are you going to capitalize on that and make it more palatable for your readers? So yeah, I'm honored that anyone reads my book. Every time I go on social media and someone says, "Yeah, about your book," and I'm loving it, or I see a Goodreads review or Amazon, or somebody puts my book up on a review on Book, I'm shocked. Like I'm like, oh my god, like I'm still very shocked. And like I said, I'm
Uh-oh.
Was that shocked he muted himself?
Sorry, I muted myself. Sorry. There you go. But yeah, I'm very humbled when people enjoy it.
I think that's a great point you made about other readers and really deciding when to listen to critique and when to sort of believe in yourself, I guess, because I actually had a conversation with someone else recently about that. I think new writers can be very sensitive about their writing. I mean, obviously, we all have been there. But I also think even booktubers did, just to ask you all as well. I mean, the first time you made your the first videos you made, did you have second thoughts about, oh, should I say that or should and did you listen to critique? So I kind of think it's the same thing. But I've been I had a lesson actually happen to me one time. I had an essay I wrote that did get published, and I, I gave it to three people, and one person just said, "Nobody wants to read about this. Just throw it out and start over," And the other two gave me constructive advice, and and the person that said throw it out, she also gave me some constructive ways to move forward. But I went ahead and just sent it in anyway, and they accepted it and published it. So sometimes you have to say, this is what I want to say. Um, and just be aware that, okay, this group of people may, there may be some readers that say this, but there's going to be some readers that say this, or viewers. So, that's kind of my thoughts on critique, but I wonder, have others had experiences with critique, and how did you grow from it?
It's something I've been thinking about, because obviously people have been asking for beta readers, and I sort of think I'd be a good beta reader, but I also have this fear that if I was going to read somebody's book, the feedback that I'd be giving them, especially at a beta reading stage, would be like, this is the book that I would have written, or this is how I would have done it. And I'm like, no, that's not what that process is for. But how do I stop that being the process? And it's the same with people that I see reviewing books and movies, and they're saying, oh, I like the book, but it didn't go and resolve this story or this part of the story. And I'm like, but that's not what the intent of the piece of creation was about. Again, you're projecting what you wanted the story to be, and therefore reviewing it as that rather than actually what the story was that's being told. I suppose the same thing Appeal was saying about, concluding the battle scenes, or taking the feedback and using the feedback of the things that people like about your work, but still doing what you want to do with it. Like if you have planned and said this is what's going to happen in this book, that you still are true to that, rather than just kind of going, oh, but people do like this, or this is the people want out of the stories, and not kind of veer too far off that course.
I've even wondered, I need to really go back and look this up, but how did people, 200 or 300 years ago, when they're writing these books we now consider classics?
Yeah.
I mean, did they have, beta readers? Did they, how did that work out?
Hey, Mom.
Right. Shakespeare,
Yeah.
So, I just wonder if, well, first of all, maybe some books, they've stood the test of time because they were well written.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I do wonder if there was some kind of process of critique and feedback, and I really haven't looked into that at all.
There was, as far as I know, and I think the difference between today and more at times in the past is that you had a very select group of people who were considered subject matter experts that wrote columns and things like that. They were considered experts, especially within a genre. Like literary critics, you'd have a literary critic for, mystery, literary critic for fantasy, a literary critic for, thrillers or romance, and a lot of them were authors or a lot of them were journalists. And, so I think it was harsher in a way because these people, what they said, carried a lot of weight, and it was a very small group of them, and it's considered very elite. And if they trashed your book, it really impacted, I think, well, first of all, your own self-worth and your confidence, but certainly public perception, and that can affect sales. And I also think that because there was no internet and no TV and no radio, and everything was done essentially by written word. I think that that's the only record that was there. So at the same time, if you weren't someone who read a lot of critiques, or you went in there without any preconceived notions or without any feedback, or you just read the book and you moved on, I think it's hard not to find. It's hard to insulate yourself from critiques and opinions about books today in today's era. But so in saying all that, I think before you could just read the book, and then if you weren't someone who read the critique, you didn't read them, right? They were in certain spots. They were in this magazine, this newspaper, this column, but they weren't accessed online. Either you got it where you were, it was distributed where you were. You had to go to a library, get your hands on it, or et cetera, or you went to your local newsstand, but you couldn't have access to that stuff. So, but now everything's so pervasive. Like, opinions are very pervasive in today's society. There's opinion about everything everywhere, right? So, but I think not so much so in the past. I think you're a bit more free just to kind of, pick up a book and read it, and, other than discussing it orally with your friends and people you knew, or perhaps in school, hearing opinions about it in formal education. I think, like now, like I said, there's opinion about everything, right? So you can't really get away.
I have an opinion about your opinion. Yeah, but no, you're right, I think, and even you're right. It was something for the elite. I'm talking, and I'm talking what, 300, 400 years ago. But even before that, when it was oral histories and oral storytelling, I mean, if the story fell flat, the storyteller would just, make adjustments next time. So just kind of a different, yeah, you're right, a different approach to what we have now. But yeah.
I think with BookTube too, like I think it was you saying earlier, Layla or Chris or Robyn, apologies Steve, I'm not sure, was that at the same time in BookTube, the most influential, biggest subscriber count booktubers on a channel that don't have those counts, and they all intermingle, interact, and we're all, the biggest indie authors talk to the indie authors that don't have, and vice versa with traditionally published authors. And I think we mix and mingle a lot more, and we're a lot less elite, if that's you want to look at it. And I think that also creates an environment where, there's more likelihood that someone who is considered to have an important and influential opinion can say something important about a book that maybe you might not have heard about. So, and that's what I also love about the community. So
there was that lovely sharing. I actually think it was our friend Joao Silva that started it last few weeks ago, where he was sharing his data for his books sales, and a couple of people jumped on that. Even Rand Cahill came on and shared his. And like, you'd think the bigger somebody is selling books, they'd be very guarded about kind of book sales and that kind of thing. But it was like, no, this is a good thing to share. If somebody else coming up as a would-be indie author kind of knows what this looks like for everybody. The very successful, the people that are just starting off, and the people that are sort of publishing second book. And this Joao here. I hope I did attribute that to you, right? But I'm pretty sure it was you, Joao.
There is a famous show. He's Seeds of War.
Yes,
Entered in
indeed.
SBFBO currently. So good luck to Joa, and his book's getting a lot of buzz around the circuit, around the indie community. So something to check out.
Mhm.
Transparency for the win.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of being nervous, Robyn, were you nervous to meet authors in person during the conference recently?
Yes, but also again because my brain short circuits and things come out my mouth that are just ridiculous. Kind of like I guess you will have a nervous nose. So I do get nervous. I never think of myself as starstruck, but then obviously this happens and I'm like, clearly I was. So I don't know what happens. I just get a bit kind of like stupid. So yeah, when we met, like even with met Adrian Tchaikovsky recently, and he was a couple of times, and he was super lovely. But I feel like I just I ended up just being like, "You're really awesome," and then forget everything that I ever know about any of his books. Sort of that kind of stuff happens. Or several times when I've been to events, it's more about the fact that I'm talking to different authors and I say something I shouldn't, like, "Oh, I know this author," but instead of saying I haven't, lovely to meet you, how's the event, I'll be like, "Oh, I haven't read your book," or whatever, and just say something stupid that you're not meant to say, but you do anyway. So yeah, I'm terrible. I get really nervous about all sorts of things with being authors. And the reason I was talking about getting nervous about doing interviews is because a couple of recent events, there's been opportunities to have face-to-face interviews with the authors as kind of like a social media-esque thing. And I've turned them down because I'm like, what? How would I go about? I think I just forget they're people. I know that's really stupid, but I don't know. Yeah, I just forget that they're just like this kind of situation. It would just be a conversation, but it's just that kind of nervousness of like, what would you say? But you just be normal, I guess. So,
Yeah. And I think that's what I love about page chewing, both Friday Conversation and our main page chewing author or creative interview feature. And that I'd like to think, hopefully, people that watch Steve, Taylor, and I talk to these people who are just people. Yes, they're authors, and some of them are well-known authors, but they're all just people like us. And I hope we bring out the humanity too in them. And that and our humanity, that we're just people trying to engage, and we love talking about books. And I think hopefully it's fun, and it's also it shows people that, hey, yeah, if you're someone who's thinking about interviewing other authors, authors love to talk about books, and they love to talk about their writing journey. So they're probably be more inclined that if you call them, hey, can you come to my channel? Probably a lot of them will probably say yes. And after that, it is just a conversation. Really, it is just when you break it down to brass tacks, what we're doing now, and what Steve, Tara, and I do on shows like Page Chewing, and anybody else who does author interviews, Layla, really cool, Chris, Robyn. It's just a chat, right? And I think if you keep thinking of it in that level, it's perhaps not as intimidating. So
I think one thing that helps too is to maybe have a list of questions or points. And usually once the person answers, it can also help you think of an additional question, and that kind of helps keep things going too, and pull out, interesting information.
I always try to have questions ready because there's always those moments when you're like, like I don't know what to say. So you have like a go-to, like and then you have something to refer to save yourself to not say something silly. So yeah, but it's nice to have those questions ready.
I just imagine on Steve's wall, like from floor to ceiling, is a list of go-to questions. Just when he looks to his left, he just is floor to ceiling. Number 4, we'll ask that one.
you know what the advantage we have too is that with Steve Taylor, there's 3 of us.
Yeah.
So we have that strength that we all have different interests, different aptitudes. We can bring out different things in each other and in the guests. So it's great to have a partner there that you can just hang with, and you have this chemistry with, and you just that's what I love so much about doing that stuff with Steve and Taylor. Having
tag team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been times when it's like, somebody please bail me out. I don't know what to say. And they always seem to know.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
Yeah.
I think that was Johan from Library of a Viking at that event you were at, Robyn. Was that the same one? I think you put up a video about it.
No idea. I haven't seen it. If it was the
he put up a video, but
Bloggers Brunch.
Yes, it was a Bloggers Brunch. Yeah, so he had brought his camera on, but what he did was basically have the same 2 questions that he went around and asked everybody, and then it riffed off that a little bit. So when he was doing his interviews with people, going around the various people that were there, the people that would speak to him, obviously, it was very much odd. Just answer these 2 questions, and he could stitch it together into like a good piece of content that made sense and like a good narrative and stuff for it. So
no, and I fully agree. I think once a conversation or a question, if you're both, I think, open questions and are answering openly, there's a lot of things you can riff off, but it's just that initial, like, you're always worried, am I just asking the same question 100 people have asked before? Which, again, if it's interesting to you, doesn't matter, but there's always that kind of worry that they'll be like, all right. But again, I just need to be a little bit less kind of like, they obviously want to talk to people about their books, so it's good.
I think you'd be great at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be fantastic.
I'll become braver in the future for sure.
Yeah.
I'd also suggest that I think that, so for me, on my blog, I have an interview feature called 6 Elemental Interviews. It's named after the 6 elemental goddesses in my novels, but essentially it's 6 questions, and it's all written form. And I've had, I'm probably up to about, I don't know, 30, 40 of those now, with a bunch of great authors. And I find that reading those, when I read those back, when I get those responses, it really helps me, I think, become a better interviewer, because there's no pressure in a written interview. You send them the questions, you think them up, they send back their answers. There's no pressure. Like, I think the respondees don't feel the same pressure because they're just writing their answers. But I think it's actually something that's helped make me a better interviewer, and kind of, because it's easier to glean those insights, like you're reading it, right? So I don't know, something as well that to think about if you're looking to do more interviews, and maybe try a written blog or something like that. So
that's a good point. You're right. This is a lot less, because you can think about the questions a little, have to do it on the fly, I guess. And yeah, B, it's a lot more of a relaxed thing if it's just written and not face to face. So true.
Yeah, Austin had a comment. Genre is more important for publishers and, to a lesser extent, readers and whatnot than artists and writers. Do any of you focus more on genre, or do you just look for story as readers when you're reading?
I look for story, and I mean, I don't know, how can I put this? I think we're pressured, just like what Austin was saying. I think there's kind of pressure in a sense to go, you've read this. Well, if you love this, and you need to read this, like on Amazon, for example, I'll pull one book up, and then it's like got all these suggestions of what to read next, which is wonderful in many ways. But I do also think it is important just to read widely, and different genres can bring out different ideas, different perspectives on similar ideas. So, to me, it's important to not stay within the genre.
I agree. I'd say, to be honest, it depends how you're asking about it, because I would say I usually would look for sci-fi books because I love the sci-fi genre. So that's where I'll start. But if you're talking about if I enjoy a book, it's obviously the story rather than the genre. It could be something else that'd be enjoyable. But I fully agree about reading widely. Again, I think this is what everyone says, but for example, I have a book club at work. None of them read sci-fi, but I enjoy going because it makes me read something that I would have never read before, and that's why it's enjoyable. Or getting recommendations from other people I watch, like Steve, horror books. I don't read horror, but occasionally I'm like, maybe I'll just dip into it because it's like new and fun. And I always enjoy those kind of reading outside. So yeah, I fully agree. You need to read widely. It's way more fun that way.
I was in the bookstore this week, was having a bad day at work, and my work colleague and it was like, right, we need to go do something. I says, we're going to take a trip to the bookstore. We don't have any plans on what we would like to buy or what we want to see. And you start browsing the fiction section and you start reading the back. And at a certain point, I'm like, this is too overwhelming. I actually had this could be anything that I'm lifting. I mean, they had the Man in the High Castle even in, because it was the classics edition in with the fiction. And at a certain point, it was like, no, I'm just going to go to the sci-fi and fantasy section because I know I need somebody to pre-selected something. I feel more comfortable in that space, and then picked up Garrett's Pals latest book and stuff after seeing him on page 2. And funny enough, that was kind of how those things permeate into your decision making further down the line. But yes, trying to work my way through the fiction section, going, there's horror in here, there's just literature, there's classics, there's absolutely everything, and kind of going, oh, so overwhelmed because this goes the length of the shop.
You know, I will admit that when I walk through a bookstore, I mean, it's like gravity. I just, you know, or magnetic. I just am pulled along the sci-fi, fantasy, horror, you know, dystopia section.
It usually has the prettiest covers as well, Layla, doesn't it? Like, let's be honest, it's got the eye cats where the eye candy is.
Absolutely. But I'm kind of a serial joiner of book clubs because I'm in a work book club where, you know, I recently read, oh gosh, what is that book? Finding Me by Viola Davis, which was excellent. Wow. And then ended up in a follow-up to that, and got a hold of another book. We did like a book exchange, and I'll have to think about the name of it. But I got another book I never would have picked up otherwise. I think it's about to be a film. It's something about a chemistry professor. I know that sounds really strange. Maybe I'll Google it. Yeah, I'll Google it later and try to think. But anyway, you know, and then with my other little group where we watch shows together, and we actually started one book club and then split ourselves into two book clubs so we could read more books. We have the elder book club and the younger book, the elder and the younger book clubs. So usually reading 2, and then here I am in page 2 and so.
I thought you were going to make a Monty Python joke there between the elder and the the people's front of Judea and the Judeans people front, you know, that kind of book club.
But you know, it's just. I think sometimes you have to be purposeful about it, and that's what I wanted so I never like volunteer. I mean, I'll throw a few titles out, but I'm more interested in what others are going to suggest, you know, especially at work and places like that.
It's quite funny actually, because I actually got dragged into organising the work one as part of this socialise endeavour sort of thing, because they're like, you like books, you organise this. So I end up having to because no one reads sci-fi, I end up having to go on I don't know, all of the book blogs you could think of, and just picking their favourites, and then I'm just like, these look like fun books that I would probably not read, and then get them to choose. So it's quite funny in that way of it, because you end up looking into books I would never read just to try and give everyone a wide range. So yeah, it's quite fun.
Do they know as part of that decision making of appointing you leader that you are a booktuber?
No, God no.
That would have been an interesting sidestep.
No. It was literally just because I'm relatively quiet, but it's part of the socialist group at work to try and get people together. They were just like, "You're quiet, you read, go do this." I was like, okay.
Let's reconnect. Yeah, that's just well-being stuff that happens in our work.
Colin had a comment. Well said, PL, joining this community originally as a consumer and now as both a content creator and consumer has hands down between the best thing that has ever happened to my literary journey.
Colin's awesome. Go check out his channel. Awesome guy. Great. Just puts out great content.
And I didn't know DeFree was in law enforcement as well.
Yeah, he's in corrections. She's in corrections, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's a corrections officer.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
And,
I hear he's quite successful at it. Yeah.
I think I've heard of him a couple times.
Yeah.
And our friend Rachel R.A. Morley, that was my lofty dream this year. I'd love to get 3 or 4 books published this year, but I know it's going to take as long as it takes to be satisfied with the whole story, with the storytelling.
Mm.
Well, you look at what Philip Chase is doing. You know, he wrote his books, kind of got them organized, and then set about his plan of releasing them 3 within a year. Did it that way.
Yeah, but they were percolating for a while, and
they were.
You know, and you know, it's never too late as long as you're alive. I published my first book in my 50s, and you know, I obviously have a lot of catching up to do. I feel, but at the same time, you know, it's not about where you start; it's where you end up. So, you know, hopefully I can have a body of work that's 20, 30 books, whatever, and you know, there's some people that start even later than that. So, you know, it's
yeah. I'll be 60 this year. And I'm finally writing my book, although I've published poetry and short stories and essays and things like that, but mainly because of the time factor. It's like, why I'm not sure if I can get a whole book written, but I can write this, 5,000 page short story, or I can write this 5,000 page, 500 word short story or essay or something like that. And just to kind of keep a toe in the water, I guess, but that's why, this summer I've made the switch. I'm going to go for it. Let's see what
all
happens.
trelloed up. Yep.
Very nice. And Carl, I can't imagine Steve as a late night radio DJ I would have loved to be like a late night
midnight caller
DJ. That would have been awesome.
Now, you would be so good at it as well.
Yeah, you'd be so amazing. Yeah, that voice, man, you got that nailed. Yeah,
that would have been fun. That would have been a lot of fun. I don't know if that's even a thing anymore, but
everything comes back.
Bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back. Hey, look, Layla, you got to volunteer.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, you got a up and coming indie popular indie authors.
Happy to happy to be a beta reader back to Joe for the second book.
I find I'm only beta reading from my one buddy who's writing currently, and I found that, again, maybe I'm just a nervous person, I found that quite intimidating, because I was like, what if I miss something or whatever else? But he was very supportive of me as a beta reader. He was like, as long as you give me some feedback and you tell me why you think that, it's good. And it's been a really fun experience, actually, reading through his he's doing it in not books, but it's complicated short story sections, essentially, that all pulled together in a series, and it's been really, really good fun. So I was thinking about maybe dipping my toes into beta reading for other people, because it's just such a wonderful experience when you're doing it for authors and that.
Do I only care about genre in the sense that I am not too keen on some of them, but reading widely is 100% the goal. Our friend Aaron's here. The page stream has been a lifeline for me. My goal in the next year is to find an in real life book club to stretch some different social muscles.
I need to find one that I have to walk to, because that would fit the social and exercise bit all within the context of the books. I think that could work for me.
You can listen to the audiobook as you walk.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Got to maximize that time. For Robyn and Chris and Layla, do any of you take genre or the type of book into consideration when you record a review for one? Do you try to stick to the same ones, or do you just, if you enjoy a book, whether it be sci-fi, mystery, thriller, fantasy, whatever it may be, do you just talk about it?
My ultimate goal is to talk about really anything I read that I want other people to know about. I think that that's sort of my way of resisting pressure to stay within a genre. I think I'll stop there with that. I mean, there, within, like when you're in academic circle, when you're like doing things for academia, maybe Chris is aware of this too, because I know you work in, a college, and there's sort of this sense that you can only do this, or if you're reading something else, or if you're going to talk about something else, then you're like, why aren't you spending your time talking about this, because people need to know about it, so I don't know, and I think there's some truth to that. I mean, you want to do well in like one main field, but I've always just felt that uh, I don't want to read something wonderful and then say, oh, I can't talk about that because,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, yeah, everything.
I tend to only do reviews of indie books now. I feel like a lot of the other books that I read have got 1,000 reviews. Like, what have I got to add by doing a video review about what am I reading at the moment? Jack Kerouac's on the road. Like, honestly, if I'd had to do a review of that, I don't really feel like I've an awful lot to say that isn't somebody hasn't done 4,000 30-minute videos about. Whereas an indie book that I've read, by definition, by and large, hasn't got very many reviews and even less video reviews. I feel like I've something to add to the conversation about that. Even the one that's been done a couple of times, like I've just done Whistle Ascending, and I think I'd a slightly different thought than some other people that talked about Whistle Ascending. I thought, right, there's something that I can talk about, and I feel like that has worth, especially if I'm only doing one book review every 2 months or something. That's what I have time for. In terms of video reviews. I think that's a pretty good use of my time. But it also has struck my mind, like, if I do more popular books, maybe more people would watch my videos. But not the principal concern.
I would say it's a little bit different to both. I don't know now. My opinion, I feel maybe no, it's good. I think although I read, although I read in other things, I'd never not read a book because it was a different genre. But I feel like I would probably still do it in my wrap-ups, but I probably wouldn't do a specific review on a book unless it fit into my main 3 ones that I usually discuss on my channel, just because I try to have a niche area. But that's just for my own kind of channel branding more than anything else, because it just might not fit in with the rest of it. But I'll still talk about it in the wrap-ups and everything else. It's never going to stop me talking about a book I enjoyed, for sure, because I always ramble to everyone about a book I've enjoyed. If I want to spend time doing review, it will probably be in the main 3 genres that I read usually. But yeah, I'd never even thought about the indie versus normal publishing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
although I would say in the case of yours, Robyn, like you're talking about even mainstream but niche sci-fi books. Like, you just done Fractal Noise and Christopher Paolini. Like, there isn't a ton of reviews about that either.
It's because it's new, though.
Yeah, but
he's still quite a prolific author.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm not sure. I like talking about older sci-fi books that are from way back when. I haven't got YouTube reviews, maybe because they're published a long time ago. But yeah, usually in sci-fi. So.
Yeah, that's something I think about too, is how far outside of that, because the audience that you kind of cultivate kind of expects certain things, and then if you go outside of that, then like you said, Robyn, we'll talk about it in the wrap up, and you'll still talk about it, but to make a dedicated, like, thorough review for it, or really expounding your thoughts, like, should I talk about a romance book? I mean, do people that watch me want to? I don't know. Something I think about. It's something that I wonder.
It's the law of large versus small numbers and stuff. Like, I will even say it about the movies that I talk about. There may be only 100 people that watch that quite commonly to me, but they don't want to hear me talk about the latest Marvel movie. Like, that is not a thing that I'm ever going to do, because they're there because I talk about really niche movies, and anybody that's watching me is watching me for that very one thing. So, the algorithm discourages it anyway. It's one of those things that says, oh God, if you're going to start doing this, like, I don't know where to recommend you or who to recommend you to. Yeah. So stop it. Which is why people do separate channels and things. So I don't know.
Yeah. 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 Get me started. Dan is here, the black and blue color reader. I
Oh,
love hearing
awesome,
PL.
Dan.
Yeah, Dan.
I hear him talk about starting a book in his 50s. I have his story lingering in my head, but the man in my head tells me I'm too late to be an author.
No, do it, Dan. Do it. We can't wait for you to do it, man. Trust me. Do it. Get it done.
Turn him into a man in your head that is got a really quietly softly spoken voice, so you can only hear him sometimes. Dan, that's the trick.
Our friend Helena's here. Hey,
Yeah,
Helena. Thanks for
Helena.
staying up late
Helena.
with us. PL and Layla, I would never guess your ages. Please tell me your secret and what creams you use.
Hell, you see all this gray, man? Of course I know that. Come on.
There's
I'm a grandfather, man. Come on, like, yeah. Many couple times over. So,
Aaron, good plan. And do you cycle, Chris? Could open up the range.
I don't cycle. Well, one of my very good friends has just listed he is a cyclist. He's just listed his bike for sale. I could buy it, except it's 4,500. So maybe not that bike. That's a lot of books.
It is fun. Yeah, it is fun. Though. Definitely.
Yeah.
If I had the spaces that Steve had to cycle, maybe I would cycle more though.
Oh my gosh, yes.
yeah.
I love watching those videos. And I know you don't like say a lot in them. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, New Mexico looks like just a phenomenal place to get out and just be one with nature and doing something like cycling. That just looks awesome.
Yeah, we have a 50-mile coming up that I've been trying to work up to, and I don't want to have to have a helicopter, come and get me in the middle of nowhere. So I'm trying to be prepared for it. But
That'll be a great video though. Great video.
I get a lot of views on that one. Yeah.
A great thumbnail. I had to be rescued by a helicopter. I mean that's
That'll go
gonna be
viral. That'll go
Yeah.
viral. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a good one. Maybe I'll just do it for the views. Maybe. Sounds like a lot of hassle for some views. Yeah, I think you can find a cheaper one, Chris.
I just need an excuse that I can't not to do it.
Is that a motorbike or 4G bicycle?
It's just one of those racing bikes. I don't know.
Mm.
It is lived in.
Bikes are
It is
expensive.
They are.
it's lived in his bedroom because it's the most temperature controlled room in his house. So it actually sleeps beside him in some ways. He must have just got a new one.
That's where they should be.
Yeah,
I spent a lot on my mountain bike.
Yeah.
A little too much. Helena, I'd be super keen to hear your view on romance books. I love a good romance book, but my favorite booktubers are sci-fi, fantasy, and horror booktubers. The romance booktube is quite niche. Yeah.
But you know what? You can find I like romance. I'll be straight up. I enjoy romance, and I'm slowly incorporating a bit more in my own series. Not. I don't think over the top that you're going to start thinking it's fantasy romance, but I believe it's kind of one of those important things. It's part of life, these relationships, right? But I think the beauty of all these genres is they have all these subgenres like fantasy romance. So J.D. Evans, Rain and Ruin, who won SPFBO
7
prior.
Yeah.
She has a great fantasy romance series. It's Middle Eastern inspired. It's lush. It's fantastic. For example, someone like J.D. There's all good. Crystal Matar, another SPFBO finalist and very extremely popular indie author. Friend of ours, she Legacy of the Bright Wash. She has, there's queer representation, there's queer romance, there's hetero romance. It's just lush with these relationships, and it's so well done. So, you can kind of find if you're looking for your romance fix in fantasy and sci-fi, if you pick certain books, you can get that too, right? So.
Yeah. It seems like romance is kind of blending into different genres now too, especially fantasy. There's lots of romance and fantasy being interwoven right now, which is good.
There's a book called Priory of the Orange Tree.
Yeah.
It's on my shelf.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's got a good romance in it, and it's just a good book. It's a pretty thick book.
It's a chonker.
Yeah, but I do want to read. There's a new a second book in the same world that's come out that I'd like to read. But I do want to say I hadn't read any romance hardly at all. But with one of the book clubs I'm in, we did read some, and I did start to appreciate them. They weren't fantasy romance, but they're being written with contemporary issues, like the office romance and all of that stuff. But it ends up being that there is a lot to talk about, like what choices the author made. It's not so much about the relationship even as what kind of choices did the author make to make this relationship come about in this book. And so I've they're enjoyable. Yeah.
What about you, Robyn? Are you a fan of romance? I know that we got a little steamy last discussion we had. So I'm just curious.
I don't know. Yeah, I like romance in a book that I'm reading as a subplot. Like I said, I don't usually read a lot of romance genre. I think it's because everyone I've ever picked up has always felt like an airport read. I just don't. I've not read a romance novel that's had enough. This is going to sound terrible. I've probably not read the genre enough. Hasn't had enough substance to it to make me really get into them. I kind of need to be part of another story kind of thing to me enjoy them. Put this all over the internet. Do enjoy a bit of smut. That's always enjoyable. But I think that's a whole nother conversation.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's funny. A great book that is very dark and has dark relationships, romance, not necessarily smut, but very, and like Illborn by Daniel Jackson. His relationships and his romances and love stuff. It's really well done. Like really, really well done. Yeah.
Like I can even say, like, going along to see, like, I like going to the theater, but getting dragged along to see Jane Eyre in the theater and kind of going, oh, this is broadly a period style romance. I was like, oh my god, I can't think of anything I'd less like to see in the world. And it was 3.5 hours long, and I was like, oh my god. It was Jane Eyre. It was the Jane Austen's Jane Eyre. It was the National Theatre production, and if you ever get to see it in London, it is honestly one of the greatest things I have ever seen on a stage in my entire life. It was life transforming how brilliantly it was put together and done, and what is ostensibly a romance at its heart was just kind of transformed. And I was like, see, there's another great example of art well done, subverting any other preconceptions or whatever else it is that you have.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's why you should never say never.
Yeah.
You never know if you're going to enjoy something or not.
Yeah.
And our friend Jared is here. The fantasy thinker. Outlander has its fair share of romance.
True. Yeah. No, for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Lantern Valley. I'm kind of similar with the booktubers I watch don't read what I would thing. It's funny how that works. So yeah, maybe once in a while to venture out. Maybe it's not too bad.
Absolutely.
But I know that our friend Helena, yes, it's so strange. Like I'm bringing Regency novels right now and sci-fi and fantasy booktube. I think it's because this booktube has the best community and the genre is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true. Well said. That it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we do.
I think that was something that Mike from Fit to Be Read was talking about a few weeks ago, and he's saying like he's very one of the most prominent sci-fi booktubers that there is, but he tends to watch a lot of fantasy. Booktube like that just seems to be what he does on the side. That's what he finds entertaining or otherwise.
Yeah. Speaking of fantasy, this whole group, I know PL's already read the books, but we're in the middle of Jenny Wirtz's Wars of Blood and Shadow. We're in book 2. And I don't know how this series doesn't have more attention, but I do see where you get your endings from, PL. I do see where that inspiration came from, because the end of book 1 was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. I didn't read Jenny Wirtz until after I started writing. Like I didn't read her till after I started writing. So I think it's more. I think going forward, stuff that I write is definitely going to take some inspiration from Jenny. But I am obviously nowhere near her level. Jenny is an elite, iconic writer that I've said it before. I'll say it again. That if you're reading and loving and feeling that. The Robin Hobbs and the Robert Jordans and the George R. Martins and the Stephen Erickson's, etc., are in a special category all into their own. You need to consider Jenny Wirtz in that category because she is even just the skill of her prose alone puts her in that very lofty category for me, and I think for most people. But then when you consider the themes and how, I'd say the more and more I read her, is that her skill in counterbalancing darkness with light, and making something that some parts can seem very, very very dark and despairing, but then the lightness and the hope, she's just a brilliant writer. So yeah. So if anybody who ever if I ever get compared to Jenny Wirtz, that's a huge compliment for me. So thank you. I'm nowhere near her level, but she definitely inspires me. And but I always like endings. I always like making endings. I write the endings of my novels first.
Right.
So yeah, and then I go back and kind of write the book backwards a lot of times. So I think you'll see that as the series goes on, Steve, that endings will become more and more like, so.
Yeah. I'm enjoying the characters, definitely.
Sorry?
I'm enjoying her characters, and it's pulling me into the story. I'm following along in Ships of Merior, although I'm always seem to be like 50 pages behind where the readers are, where you guys are, but trying to catch up. Yeah,
it is an immense series. It is very, very dense, but I'm going to, when I haven't done a reread yet, obviously, and she's not finished the series, she has one book to go. But I think it's one of the series like Malazan, however you like to pronounce it. Like to a certain degree, and I haven't gotten nearly as deep in this series. The Prince of Nothing, which you guys have all been very far along in. Malazan, I think I'm 4 books in. Like Wheel of Time, like it's one of those things you just have to realize you're going to miss stuff. You're not going to get everything. You just have to keep reading. You're going to get enough that's going to be very compelling. And then later on, you go and reread it, or you pick up other things, and it's just going to enhance your experience. But you can feel a bit overwhelmed, but slow down, take your time. These books are meant to be lush and to be enjoyed. It's kind of savored like fine wine. Like you can't just. It's not. I think Rob was saying like more popcorn type. Like it's not like that. This is, let's say serious reading. This is something to be read, savored, enjoyed. Take your time, absorb it, or you're gonna miss things no matter what. But just enjoy the ride. So
yeah.
I think it sounds really weird, but I think with this book particularly, more than the first, the second one, it really reminds me of being a child and reading fantasy and not being worried about like everything else I've got to do. Like, when you're a kid and you're reading, you haven't got to worry about dinner or everything else, and just sitting down and enjoying the process. I'm really this is taking me back to that, because it's such like an involved, slow, you've just got to give it that time, that kind of reading in fantasy. So it's been really, really enjoyable so far.
Those are the kind of books that I love. Those are the kind of books I aspire to write. I love reading. Don't get me wrong. I love reading fast-paced books that are just nonstop action. Those are all great and stuff. You read something like Evan Winter. I mean, it's just your heart rate is just like up here all the time, like just battle to battle to battle. It's a good ride. But I prefer the more slower, immersive reads, and that's what I try to write. I think every book has a pulse, right? Like if I can say, for example, my 3 books, the first book is kind of like this, and then it has, and then it has this, and then I might have another one, and then the ending is kind of a bit crazy. The second book is more like this, right? Like, and then it goes there, but then and then the third book is just a roller coaster. And a valley, and then a peak, and then a real valley and a peak. And, so it just depends on what you like reading, but I do like the ones that are more consistent arc, and it kind of builds to something. And Jenny's definitely like, they tend to build to this big climax, like, oh my gosh, you just
you have me thinking that your plan includes a roller coaster. You get a kind of overview of your books, book 1, book 2, 3, 4 is the different pacing. That'd be a cool thing to share.
Yeah, I mean, for someone like Steve, that's read. Well, he's read the first two, so yeah, I think I don't know if he'd agree, but yeah, it's yeah. Thank you again, Steve. That one is more of a and then and then you kind of go into these. I think Steve, who liked my last book, like the last part is very intense. Like the last part of this book that you have, Steve Lord King, is very intense. I think Layla's going to be starting as well too. Thank you, Layla.
Yeah.
It's on my TBR this month as well. It's on my.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to add it to mine now. You're making it sound awesome.
Oh,
But I have questions. I was going to say it earlier, and I didn't want to just pepper you with writing questions. But I have questions, if that's okay. You said you have 20 books in your head, essentially. So you also said that you were going to be like, oh, I've added a little bit of romance here and here and here. Have you written anything that's changed something later? If you already had the 20 in your head. Like, how does that?
To some extent, not major plot points, but side characters certainly that I'm added. And I've talked about this before. A lot of writers talk about this, like some characters just demand agency. They actually say, "You gotta put me in there more, coach. You gotta see more from me." And but the actual the guts of the story, if you will, Robyn, the general outline is pretty rigidly set in stone for 20 books. Each book, it's planned to the degree that, what all the major characters do, what happens to them, how long they live, how long they die, the titles of the books, the covers, the family trees, it's all
20
plotted
books,
out, right?
all in
Yeah.
your head. It's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I again, that's just me. That's just how I write, and that's it doesn't mean it's the right formula. It's just my formula, what works for me, right? But what I think, like I said, my main advantage is you get that one book a year out. I know where I'm going. I know what's happening. There's no guesswork. I just have to write the damn thing, and once I do, it's hopefully consistent in terms of my production, right? So like I said, Alliance Pride book 4 is on track for spring release. I'm honored that Steve's one of the people that's going to be reading it kind of advanced, and if he likes it, giving some cover fodder quote for the book. And I'm trying to take you along.
So. I love our friend of us all, kind of John Palladino, when he was talking about writing his first book, Trials of Ishmael, when you were talking about how he writes and changes the story within the book. He was saying that he was writing one of his characters and he was so bored of writing the character that he just got to the end of the book and says, this person has to die because I just can't write them anymore. I love that story. It's just like, yeah.
Carl had a question. Could that be restrictive, something that might happen in book 5, but you wish you could go back to book 2 and do a little or less, more or less foreshadowing?
Oh, that's a fantastic question, Carl. I've talked about this, especially with Janny Wirtz on various discussions. So I have a lot of mysteries kind of buried in my book, a lot of things that need to be revealed and get uncovered. And I love messing with readers. Like, people have, I'm not some big writer, but I love when people DM me and say, I have a theory about this. This is what's going on. Right. And I'm like, well, that's a great theory, but may or may not be. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I love hiding things in plain sight. I love, kind of teasing the readers with this thing that's happening and you don't know what's going on. Is it real? Is it imagined? What's really happening here? And then eventually revealing part of it. And then maybe the reader goes down the garden path. Oh, well, it must be this. And then it shows to be something else. I absolutely love that. That's one of the most fun parts about being a writer is that kind of semi-deceptive. It's not purposely. It's you're having fun with the mysteries, especially with a fantasy book of your novel and what's actually happening. Someone like Steve and Layla who've read them, there's a lot of things that we're not sure if this is real. We're not sure what's going on here, we're not sure what this means, but hopefully it's interesting enough to keep you guessing and to want to find out. So I absolutely love doing that stuff. I do tons and tons of foreshadowing. I do foreshadowing on many layers, and I always said that everything. The whole clue to my series is written in all the books all the way along. So if you're someone who after you finish them, you're going, oh my gosh, that's what that meant. That's what I'd like the reaction to be. So.
Did have a couple of comments from Lantern Valley. You can have infinite ways of fantasy, and if you say, I have a fantasy element to my novel that explains nothing about the story, subgenres are necessary. Fantasy is infinitely awesome and interesting, but it's useless. It's a useless word to describe a book. Sorry, I have these in out of order, I think. You can eat potatoes in infinite ways, and everyone has or will. If you say, I have eaten or will eat potatoes in my life story, it explains nothing about what you eat. So that's some...
But the types of potatoes that you do eat say a lot about you as a person, I have to say. As an Irishman, I can attest to that.
Our friend Dan had a question. I know it's getting late for you, Robyn. I don't want to keep you too long. Just had a question from Dan to finish up on. I just finished Blood Meridian and I'm wrecked. Has this happened to anyone else with any other book?
Oh, yeah.
So, what does everyone have an answer for that one?
Oh yeah.
Well, I have not read it yet, but the reviews, actually I read reviews of, not full reviews, but comments about it on the page chewing site, and there seemed to be like, without giving anything away, sort of a strong reaction. It seemed like people were into it or didn't quite, get into it. So, yeah, but it makes me want to read it.
I haven't read Blood Meridian, but I know that many of Jenny's books in particular have just left me ruined. Pearl's Gate was really, really hit me hard. The last, Initiate's Trial. Like all her books have hit me hard, but there's a few of them have really, really got to me. I would say Storm of Swords was George R. R. Martin's, a couple of his books as well that really, really got to me. Miles Cameron, his last book, in the series in the Trader Sun cycle, one of my favorite series, Fall of Dragons. That one was a hard hitter. I really like Grace of Kings. Really, like I haven't got that review up yet, but wow, like that book really. I mean, that book was right in my alley. Oh, Malazan, yes sir. Okay, yes, so Malazan, the Dead House Gates. Woo. Wow, yeah, that hit hard. That hit hard. So those are some of the ones. And the first, I've only read the first one. The first of the Prince of Nothing. That was pretty, and I heard it just gets crazier. I can't. I think that I'm hoping that I think that might become one of my top series if I can just get to the rest. But the first book just blew me away. So.
You're starting in August.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Robyn?
Nothing that's really been that's like killed me. I haven't read any like ones that have really emotionally blown me away recently or been really heavy. The only one that recently more conceptually about what it was rather than getting emotionally involved in anything else, that was The Flux by Jim Woo Chang, I think, which was that the concept in that book is ridiculous. Like, it's just, I had no idea where it was going. And then all of a sudden it comes together and you're like, oh my God, what? Fantastic work. Recommend it to everybody. But it's much more about the concept rather than being emotionally dragged through the mud. So.
What about you, Chris?
I would say the last couple of books in Dresden definitely do that. Dresden as a series is sort of Like you think you know what you're getting, and then at a certain point of the series, it just becomes the end of every book, and especially for a long running book, it's not afraid to rewrite the entire ethos of the world. You know, it's especially long form books that are kind of done, do a formula to somewhat the kind of right. If I'm going to write another book, it's going to fit this formula. The reason Dresden's so successful is from about book 12 on, 13, 14, etc. Yes, it decides I'm just going to change everything about this world at the end of every book, and it's like that's so brave on one end, but it also means that the end of those books are always like, okay, the last 50 pages, brace yourselves. Shit is about to go absolutely down, and you don't know where you're going to be at the end of it. I would say it happens about 50 pages before the end of a Stephen King book. I think the last 50 to 100 pages, most Stephen King books, he fumbles. But at some point in there, you just go, holy shit, this is absolutely incredible in some way. And there'll be a case where I just need to take a break. I just need to stop reading this for a while. This is just messing with my head a little bit too much. And those are the ones that really jumped in my head.
I think for me, most recently, The Unholy Consult. I'm still
reading off that.
Yeah. But also Crossroads by Laurel Hightower really got to me, and the Nightmareland Chronicles by Daniel Barnett, really, really good. Yeah, to name a couple. But the time always flies. I know it's late in the UK, Robyn. I won't give you too long, but before we sign off, yeah, but out of tea. The tea is empty. But PL, where can you tell us where people can find you?
Well, soon on my own YouTube channel, starting tomorrow, more than before. Anyways, it wasn't like it wasn't like I wasn't on YouTube because I was on Steve's channel or Taylor's channel. So the difference is now, but I'm finally going to be a big boy and have my own. So that's going to be starting again first page chewing episode with Philip Chase. Awesome. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. Philip's a wonderful guy. He's in the middle of publishing his Adan series, as Chris was mentioning. So that's viewed. So that's the Drawn Kingdom Saga 7847. That's my YouTube channel. With Steve and Taylor, their channels for page chewing, Friday Conversation as well. Before we go blogging, where I'm an assistant editor, reviews there and on Goodreads. Twitter is my preferred social media platform. At Peel Sturt Writes. That's Twitter. And the books, the Drawn Kingdom Saga, some book series currently ongoing. Third book, Lord and King, just got released. Working on the fourth, Alliance Pride. www.peelsturt.com.
Again.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I always like how Steve, it's almost like he's showing off a child. This is my child. My friend PL wrote this, and now I have it, and it's in my arms.
They keep me warm at night.
Yeah.
I hope you like it. I hope you like the book.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. What about you, Robyn?
Can be found on my YouTube channel, Bookends Biscuits. I like to be on Twitter as well, so you can find me on Twitter, quite active there. Instagram, less active, and page chewing, which is always an enjoyable time. So yeah, those places.
Nice. And Layla?
You can find me on Twitter at Layla Goushey or at Validity Magazine.
And Chris?
You can find me on my own channel, Chris Mohan. You can find me probably somewhere on Steve's channel over the next couple of weeks. We've got Ships and Marrier discussion coming up next week, for instance, at least. And you can find me on Page Tune Forums. There's a lot of big discussions going on the Page Tune Forums these past couple of weeks. Steve keeps on finding really interesting stuff to talk about. That's an underrated part. But all of the plaudits that we were giving Steve earlier on, man, that's a really underrated one.
Just see interesting things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You can find me on the best place is pagechewing.com on the forums, or we're also looking for anybody who wants to contribute on the blog side too, because I spent all that time setting up WordPress and then it's like sad. So anyone who wants to have a few people willing to help me out. So great stuff. So yeah, come on by if you haven't already. And thanks to all of you for hanging out. Thank you, Robyn, for staying and play with us. Really appreciate it. Hope it wasn't too bad.
It's been great fun.
Oh, good stuff. Layla, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. So So we will see everyone very soon. Hope everyone has a great weekend and be safe. And we will talk very soon.
Take care.
Bye bye.